Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. So, to say that I have a mother in law from hell is such an understatement. Ever since I, 35 female, met my husband, 33 male, she's been such a thorn on my side and likes to play the victim. She's gone out of her way over the years to drive a wedge between us, and I think this time she's actually done it by ruining her relationship with my husband. I met my husband 3 years ago while I was a guest speaker at a law school that I had previously attended before becoming a lawyer. Both of my parents had also gone to law school, with my mother becoming a district attorney and my father becoming a prosecutor. My husband was the assistant to the professor whose class I was giving a guest lecture to, and once we saw each other, sparks instantly flew. I asked him out to lunch after the class was over, and ever since then, we began seeing each other. We clicked immediately, and it was almost as if it were love at first sight. Cue me meeting his parents 3 months into the relationship. And while my husband's father became fond of me, his mother never grew to like me nor cared for me since the beginning. However, my parents adore my husband and treat him like family, like in-laws are supposed to. Because I'm 2 years older than my husband and asked my husband out to lunch the first time we met, my mother-in-law accused me of preying on her son, as if he's like 10 years younger than me. With my father-in-law being a pilot and never being home, my mother-in-law has plenty of time on her hands to try to interfere in our relationship, since she's a housewife and does absolutely nothing but call my husband. It could be 10 at night. She'll call him for the most ridiculous things, such as thinking she heard footsteps when she's alone at home or that her blender isn't working. Like, seriously? Who even uses their blender during the hours you should be sleeping? I finally had enough when my husband and I got married and my mother-in-law decides to guilt trip my husband into allowing her to stay at our house for a couple of days, since my father-in-law had gone back to work right after the wedding. She claimed that she didn't want to be at her house all alone, but I knew it was because she didn't want us sleeping together. We had decided to consummate our relationship on our wedding night, and so far it hasn't happened because at our wedding reception, my mother-in-law suddenly gets food poisoning, and so we had to postpone our honeymoon to Hawaii to stay in town to care for her. I already was not in the best mood with her because before the wedding, she had insisted on us signing some ridiculous contract since my husband had refused to make me sign a prenup. Having grown tired of fighting with his mother, my husband and I agreed to sign the contract, and I was even able to add some things to it myself. The contract was basically my in-laws' idea to try to gain control of our marriage, with things in the contract such as, if I'm caught cheating, then I have to agree to have my marriage annulled instead of a divorce. I'm also supposed to always respect my mother-in-law's choice to spend as much time with my husband as she wants to. Ever since the wedding has happened and she's been staying at our place, she's been forcing me to spend the night outside of the house. In her mind, she's protecting her son from sleeping with me and getting me pregnant. And it's really gotten ridiculous to the point I decided to seek revenge. When it gets to be about 10:30 p.m., all of a sudden, my mother-in-law says she needs something since she continues to claim to have food poisoning. She'll insist for me to go to the store alone without my husband, and then once I'm out of the house, she locks all the locks on the front door, hides my husband's phone, and then goes to sleep. When I get home with the stuff she sent me out to get, I can't get into my house because even when I use my key to unlock the door, I can't get in because of the bolt lock. I'll call my husband's phone, then her phone, until it gets so late I have no choice but to sleep in my car in the driveway. In the morning, my husband comes out to get the newspaper, sees me sleeping in the car, and wakes me up. asking me, why am I sleeping in the car? When I tell him that his mother locked me out, she starts crying and says how I hate her and that she's so weak from being ill that it's easy for her to fall asleep quickly. She claims she didn't hear me banging on the door or that her phone was on silent when she called me. This kept happening every night for the next 3 nights until I finally had enough and went to my parents about it. I told them that my mother-in-law was already causing issues between my husband and me because my husband was already growing irritated with how much fighting was taking place so soon after we'd gotten married. My father suggested we look at the insane contract my mother-in-law had my husband and I sign after noticing something I added. In the contract, it states that if my mother-in-law didn't respect me in my own home, she'd be banned for 6 months. She was disrespecting me by causing friction between my husband and me. My parents accompanied me back to my house with the contract and walked in as my mother-in-law was painting me out to be a terrible person to my husband. My father hands my mother-in-law the contract and tells her to read clause number 10 on page 15. She's surprised by what she reads because she never read what I added to the contract before my husband and I signed it. My mother tells my mother-in-law that by not being considerate of me, by having me sleep outside in my car for the past few nights and making it hard for my husband and I to enjoy our honeymoon, she has to honor the contractual agreement of staying away from our home for 6 months. My mother-in-law says she doesn't have to do anything, and if her son wants her there, then she can be here whenever she wants. My father reminds her that he's a prosecutor and can take her to court over this on my behalf if I was to sue her for not holding up her agreement of the contract that she had signed. She complains that she didn't even know what I had added to the contract, and my mother then tells her, well, maybe if you would have read it before signing it, you would have known. When my parents politely ask my mother-in-law to leave the residence, she becomes furious and tries to argue her way out of it. My husband is clearly upset, yet he turned on his mother when she told me I'd be a terrible mother and shouldn't have kids. That enraged my husband so much that he packed his mother's stuff and let her out of the house, telling her not to call him until she respects me. She throws a fit in front of our neighbors, yelling that I caused her son to turn against her and that I hate her. She keeps screaming lies about me until my parents threaten to contact the police. Within minutes after leaving, she blows up my husband's phone with calls, texts, and hysterical voicemails. He blocks her from contacting him, a decision he made himself. I want to know, AITA for upholding the contract that my mother-in-law forced us to sign? It's been a month and things are still pretty bad with my mother-in-law. My husband gave in once to try to talk to her and hear her out, but after she continued bad-mouthing me, he just stopped speaking to her again. She's dragged my husband's aunt, my mother-in-law's older sister, and my husband's cousin, my aunt-in-law's daughter, into this mess, and now it's gotten worse because both of them are calling my phone, leaving threats on my voicemail. The cousin-in-law actually came up to my job last week, threatening to fight me and had to be escorted off the property by security guards. I've even been uninvited from my cousin-in-law's upcoming wedding next month, and my husband was told to not bring me if he's attending. It's been 2 months, and now I'm being called manipulative on social media by my in-laws because my husband refused to attend his cousin's wedding. Even when I told him that it was fine to go without me, he refused and said this was all so childish and that he didn't marry me just to allow his family to think it was okay to bully me. I do feel a bit embarrassed because my mother-in-law's on Facebook saying that I banned her from our home and I forced my husband to block her. The latter not being true because he decided to do that on his own. I've become stressed out about the situation to the point I just avoid his family events as much as I can now. Things are surprisingly a lot better now after the 3 most stressful months I've ever encountered in life. My father-in-law had been out of the loop this entire time about what's been going on, and since he's always out of town, it's been easy for things to just go over his head. Supposedly, my mother-in-law didn't come clean to him about what's been happening, and anytime my father-in-law asked her why we haven't been over for dinner the last few months, she'd make up an excuse about how busy we are. One day, my father-in-law decided to scold my husband for not coming over for dinner in a long time, and that's how my father-in-law found out about everything. He ended up chewing my mother-in-law out, and now she's attempting to play nice, since my father-in-law is furious with her. So far, it's been a lot more peaceful as we try to mend things and are even planning to do a big family dinner soon as a way of trying to put things behind us. Wow, your mom-in-law sounds like a nightmare. So NTA, and it's good that things are going better now, for all of that to transpire after getting married. That's honestly horrible. Hopefully, things do continue to get better from here on out. I think with your father-in-law out of town so much, it makes your mother-in-law try to spend more time with your husband since she's lonely. She probably sees you as a threat because with him being with you, he has to provide you with most of his time. Last week, I, female 21, was supposed to go to Paris for a week with my friends. My niece, Jay, 6, was understandably very jealous when she found out we'd be spending a few days in Disneyland and started begging me to take her. I told her I couldn't, but promised to bring back presents for her and S, 2.5, my nephew. My sister, Kay, 26, even said that maybe they could go on their holiday next year. This wasn't good enough for Jay, so she started whinging and then screaming, so my sister took her home. This was a week last Wednesday. They came round on Sunday, the day before I was due to leave. I was packing my suitcase and had all the things I was taking spread around my room. My passport was on my desk, but when I went to pack it, it was gone. I couldn't find it anywhere, and neither had my parents or sister. We finally found it in the possession of my nephew, and he'd ripped through the page with my photo, rendering it useless. When my sister asked him what he was doing with it, he told us that Jay had given it to him. My sister started interrogating Jay, and she finally admitted that it wasn't fair that I got to go to Disney and she didn't. So she gave it S and told him they were playing hide and seek with it. She's been abroad and knows that I can't go without my passport. There was no time to get a new passport, so I didn't get to go on the holiday I'd been saving ages for, and it was late to get a refund. The cost of the holiday, the park tickets I'd already paid for, and replacement passport totals at £725. I told my sister I wanted to pay me back. She said the S is only little, and he didn't know what he was doing. I told her I believed that, but her daughter knew full well what she was doing. I did tell her if she couldn't do it in one go, I was happy to accept installments. She refused, and she and her partner are acting like I'm an a-hole. My mom and dad are siding with me, though, and telling them they should pay me back. My sister said they'd have to take the money out of the savings they have for the kids' Christmas presents, and was I happy for taking away their Christmas? I reminded her she didn't have to pay in one go. To answer some FAQs. I looked into an emergency passport and claim on my insurance. An emergency passport takes a week, and I was due to travel the next day. Insurance does not cover you if you don't have a passport prior to traveling, only if it's lost while on holiday. My niece has been punished. My sister told her that there was absolutely no way they'd be going to Disney next year. I also gave her my own form of punishment. My friends still went on holiday, and I gave them some of my euros to get me some Disney swag. I asked them if they could get a Nemo cuddly for my nephew. He's Nemo mad. I didn't blame him for the incident because he's only little. I made a big show of making it clear she got nothing, but that she would have done if she hadn't taken my passport and she'd brought it on herself. I still had an older burgundy passport. The photo page was paper and easily ripped. NTA, it should come out of their Christmas. The kids damaged your passport and caused you to miss vacation and lose significant money. A loss of some Christmas gifts would be a lesson to them, at least the older one who knows better, and to the parents. NTA, she should pay you back after Christmas, but also it's important that she accept responsibility for her children. Kids make terrible choices, but it's the parents' job to explain the consequences and make sure they understand what they did was wrong. Not only should your sister pay, she should sit down with her and discuss the value of £725. What could £725 buy? How her aunt took vacation days and now can't go on her trip. You're in the right, and it's nice that your parents are backing you. So sorry about your trip being ruined. I need some outside perspective here. I'm 6 months pregnant and due to have a baby shower in the next few weeks. The important context is that I am super, can't spend more than 20 minutes in the sun, white British, and my partner is British Indian. My friends were discussing games to play on the day, and one suggested it would be fun to play a version of her workplace's tea chart. They have a Dulux paint chart that they mark their name against for what color they like their tea, coffee to be. The point is to make the tea run easier when people are in the office. For that context, I think that's actually a great idea. Her suggestion was that people place their bets using the same scale of paint chart, from cream to dark brown, on what skin color my child will have. Now, I am not on board with this. At a minimum, it's odd, and at a maximum, it's pretty bloody racist. I'm being accused of being oversensitive for not wanting to play a fun, harmless game. My partner also thinks it's very odd and is against it being played. AITA for really not being into it, banning it as a game? Firstly, thank you for your responses and well wishes for me and the baby. On to the actual update. I've lost a fair few friends over this. I spoke to the friend who originally suggested it, and she maintained that it's just fun and sent me a link to a routine by a comedian talking about how stupid it is for people to get offended on other people's behalf with the message, "This is what you sound like." Essentially, her point is that even if it is racist, that it isn't directed specifically at me or my husband, so we can't be offended. Our friendship group has basically split into the people who think she's being a knob and the people who think I am. For an extra bonus of finding out some of my friends are awful, I discovered that a lot of the ones siding with her are super okay with the phrase half-caste. I'm Irish, so pale Irish people comment on it pale. I live in the UK, and the only people who would find it jolly japes to compare a baby to a cup of tea are racists. They are the number 6 deepest tone of Dulux racist. And may I add, Dulux's color charts currently have some hella problematic name choices that are quite racist. Colonial and off-putting to me in this day and age. So the fact they've termed this the Dulux game to rebrand the paper bag test as Live, Laugh, Love Racism for Modern Britain with a British Asian Prime Minister is an extra layer of ick. It's supposed to be the Pantone chart anyway for tea or toast. The whole comparing a child of Indian heritage to tea when Britain colonized the subcontinent and tea was the major cash crop of servitude akin to sugar in the Caribbean is literally tone deaf. This is one of many reasons comparing people of color to mocha, caramel, etc., is dehumanizing and insulting. It's using items linked with oppression to now categorize them to the white gaze. Will you be taking a Pharaoh and ball chart and playing what undertone of white these people are? Is Susie in accounts a bit yellowy like arsenic? Is Jenny more like putty? Funny how no one compares very pale people like me to mashed potatoes. Because honestly, my arse really does resemble it in tone and texture, but yet here they are playing colorism with an unborn baby because to them their skin tone is the default. I wonder if they are gammon is a slur types or just mind-bendingly stupid. I would cancel the shower. You can't educate haddock. They spoke this out loud and argued it when you politely asked if they were serious. They aren't going to let go now. They'll just keep pushing an afternoon tea theme to punish you for not going along with it. If they genuinely didn't realize, they'd have apologized as soon as you explained not to call it harmless. NTA. NTA, it's flat out racist. And not only is it an odd thing to participate in, it's an offensive thing to participate in, which was clearly made without you or any BIPOC attending the baby shower in mind.